You probably think you know who you are. You've been told a name, a personality, a set of memories and traits that supposedly define you. But none of that holds up under scrutiny. What you call you is, in reality, an ongoing simulation held together by habit and language. The modern self is not a truth to be discovered, but a story to be updated, constructed from social feedback, narrative consistency, and neurological shortcuts. Your identity functions less as a reflection of who you are, and more as a strategy for coherence. Memory, which forms the backbone of your identity, is inherently unreliable. Each time you recall an event, you alter it. Neuroscience confirms that memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. You're not remembering the past, you're remembering your last edited version of it. The past you think defines you is malleable. And if your story can be rewritten each time you tell it, how solid can the you within it really be? You are not the author of your life story. You are at best its narrator, and often an unreliable one. Psychology has shown that personality is fluid. What you describe as your nature is actually context-dependent behavior. You're not introverted or extroverted. You're more or less of both, depending on where, when, and with whom. Even preferences, which we hold dear as personal truth, fluctuate with exposure and repetition. Today's convictions often contradict yesterday's. This inconsistency doesn't make you inauthentic. It simply reveals that identity is a pattern, not a constant. Thoughts, the internal monologue you associate with yourself, don't originate from a central commander. They arise spontaneously, shaped by biology, memory, culture, and stimulus. You don't generate thoughts, you witness them. You're not the voice, you're the space in which it speaks. And yet we spend our lives defending an identity we didn't choose, maintaining a version of ourselves we never stop to question. Who are you when you're not performing? Who are you without your audience, your resume, your reflection? Meditation and phenomenology both converge on this point. There is no stable, observable self. The more carefully you look for it, the more it dissolves. What remains is awareness itself, empty, open, and constantly changing. You are not the thinker. You are the field in which thoughts arise. You are not the body. You are the perception of form and sensation. You are not even your name. That's just a symbol others use to refer to a narrative you've spent years rehearsing. So then, who or what are you? You are not a thing. You are a process, a flux of events, a layered experience with no clear edge. The desire to be a fixed someone is natural but deeply misleading. We cling to roles, student, parent, professional, artist, because they give us structure. But when those roles are stripped away, what remains? Do you fear that emptiness? Or does it feel strangely familiar? This fear of non-identity is what keeps us trapped in repetition. We recreate our past selves every day, even if they no longer serve us. Because to not be anyone at all feels like death to the ego, but in truth it's freedom. Because when you stop clinging to the illusion of self, you stop defending things that don't need protection. You stop needing to prove yourself. You stop trying to be consistent at the cost of your evolution. You begin to live more honestly, not from identity, but from presence. Not from the fiction of who you think you are, but from the immediacy of what is happening right now. So let me ask you directly, who are you beneath the narrative? Who are you when you're not trying to impress, explain, or perform? If you stop telling your story for a moment, would you disappear? Or would you finally show up? Every identity is a role, and every role can be released. Not destroyed, not denied, simply loosened. So you can breathe, so you can adapt, so you can exist without always having to define yourself. There's nothing wrong with identity. It helps us function. But mistaking it for your essence is like mistaking the map for the territory. Useful, but not real. The truth is simple and difficult. You are not who you think you are. And that's not a flaw. That's your gateway to freedom. Because if the self is flexible, you're not bound to who you were. You're free to become who you need to be, moment by moment, fully awake in the flow of now. But if you're not a fixed identity, if the self is more echo than structure, then what becomes of purpose? Is purpose a function of personality? A product of your story? Or is it something more immediate? Something discovered in presence, not imposed by narrative? Most people believe they must be someone before they can do something meaningful. But what if the inverse is true? What if meaning arises not from who you are, but from how you engage with the world when the mask slips? What if authenticity is not about consistency, but congruence? Not about aligning with your past, but aligning with what is true now. The more you observe yourself, the more you realize that your mind is not a stable narrator. It is a theater. Thoughts compete for your attention. Emotions fight for dominance. Desires contradict each other. And yet, there is something beneath the noise, something that watches, that notices the conflict but is not defined by it. That remains when identity fractures. That listens when the ego goes silent. Can you feel it? The stillness beneath the story, the calm beneath the image, the awareness that doesn't need explanation because it never spoke to begin with. That awareness is not personal. It has no preferences, no attachments, no fear of contradiction. It simply is, and it's always been there, even before your name, your memories, your ambitions. So ask yourself honestly, who do you become when you stop trying to become? When you stop performing the character you've played for so long, not because you reject it, but because you no longer need it? Can you remain still in that space? Can you meet yourself in the absence of a role? That perhaps is the most radical act, to let the story go and find out what remains, not as an idea, not as a conclusion, but as a direct experience. This silence, the one behind all words, is not emptiness. It's spaciousness, and in that space there's no need to explain who you are, because nothing is missing, nothing is broken, nothing is lacking definition. You were never incomplete. You were never supposed to be someone else. You were only taught to believe that what you already are wasn't enough. That belief created the need to build a self, to polish it, to protect it. But none of that effort ever gave you peace. Because peace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. Not a surrender of power, but of illusion. Of the idea that your value depends on identity. That you need to keep proving your existence through image, success, comparison, or perfection. You don't. What you are has always been here. Before the story. Beneath the mask. Beyond the mind. And maybe, if you stop reaching for something solid, you'll discover the one thing that never needed to be grasped. Your own presence, unafraid of contradiction, untouched by failure, free from the need to be explained. So don't rush to define yourself. Don't chase a finished version of you. Instead, stay curious, stay awake, stay open to the truth that can only be felt in the absence of labels. Because the most honest version of you isn't something you find. It's something that reveals itself when you stop trying to be someone.